Good evening. I'm James Siniak, and I'm your Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate race here in Indiana. And today we have some important topics to talk about, including the Greenwood hero and the abortion bill that was presented today in the legislation for Indiana. So, those are two important topics that we will hit, but a little bit more about me and my fresh modern approach to Washington, D.C. We are full gear in campaign. We had a highlight on all Indiana politics this last Sunday. If you missed it, you can catch it on YouTube or my website, www.seniac4senate.com. I want to thank you for joining in today. I believe that these discussions are important in how we really have topics across the table and how I'll best represent you in Washington. And that's why I love hearing from you. If you do want to go live on these videos, you are more than welcome to do so. In your comment, put live and then put your question, and we'll bring you actually on. If you just want us to address whatever question you have, you can just type those in as well. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Chris Galt. He is the best political director in the U.S., and he's the political director of Indiana LP. So please welcome Chris Galt, and we're excited to have him here today.
Hey, thanks, James, for the high praise. I'm new, so I'm probably not the best, but hey, we're getting there. I'm really excited to be here too with you, James.
Well,
Excited to, yeah, what?
you say you're new, but you've done this on the county level for a while now, so you have
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk with you about these important topics that are really on everybody's minds, and hear from some Hoosier voters and some of their questions, and I'm happy to bring them to you. So yeah, like you said, I guess we'll start with the Greenwood, the mall shooting, as our first topic. So just kind of break it down a little bit. Within 15 seconds, this man enters the mall and he goes to the bathroom for an hour. And he comes out and he just immediately starts shooting people in the mall in Greenwood, Indiana. But within 15 seconds of that man opening fire inside the mall, a hero was able to step in and prevent any further deaths. He was armed with only a handgun, and he shot from a distance of about 40 yards away from the shooter. And he shot 10 shots and landed 8 of them. These are just the facts of the story. The police say he had no military or police training or background of any kind. But despite this, he was able to save countless lives. I think it's pretty astounding. James, a hero. I think of a hero. It's just an ordinary person that faces something extraordinary, a monumental challenge, and he acts with courage and honor and self-sacrifice, and that's I think how you would define him as a hero.
Absolutely. This is a really important case study for many reasons. But before we make it a case, my heart does go out to the victims. That there was death in this case, and that really affects me. And Greenwood, for those who don't know, is my community. I actually regularly visit that mall. It's one of my go-to spots, and so I'm very familiar with that area. I'm very in this community, and so it really touched me in ways that. It was heartbreaking to see my community even lose some life, but really the light of the story is the heroism. And one of my favorite pastimes is Marvel superheroes and even DC superheroes, although I think Marvel does a little better on the movies. But when we look at superheroes, we love to idolize these superheroes that are fictional, but this is a real life event that someone stepped up to pure evil and did the right thing. And when we discuss this, that there's so many ways we can confront this issue. But when we think about the 15 seconds, 2 people died, and how many more could have? But this young man stood up and said, "In the face of evil, we have to have self-defense." And he not only shot the perpetrator 8 out of 10 shots, but he also got others to safety. And he did everything right in this situation. Currently, he's not speaking. He lawyered up, which is very smart on his part. if you're ever involved in any type of shooting, I would recommend doing this before you speak to press. Always get a lawyer, but that's another topic. So absolutely, this is an example of heroism, and I really want to put that in light in our community. Also, Chris, you were giving a lot of facts, but the actual handgun he used was a Glock. And one part that was really interesting to me is most of my training with handguns have been on Glocks. When I was a correction officer, that's how they trained me. And so I'm very familiar with the gun. And I've been in situations where they train us with um, active, for situations like this, they train us for active shootings. And even with all my training, it was absolutely amazing what he did. And to hit 8 out of 10 times from 40 yards is absolutely astounding and amazing. So high praise for Eli. Thank you for stepping up and defending others and defending yourself.
Yeah, and in an active shooter situation, like I just can't imagine the nerves in and even practicing thousands of rounds on a target is not the same as being there in the situation. So,
Exactly. I mean, when you go to target practice, you don't have anything shooting back at you. You don't have a real life adrenaline going through you. And even to um, practice for that is near impossible. I saw a challenge where they're like, okay, hit the target 8 out of 10 times. And basically they said, do 15 jumping jacks and you have 15 seconds to hit the target 8 out of 10 times, which is an interesting challenge. But just the fact that 15 jumping jacks doesn't even come close to what an active shooter actually, that situation actually is.
yeah.
So again, it's amazing that how many lives he probably saved, and the fact that I believe constitutional carry really showed up how important it is that we pass that in this state so that people can defend themselves.
Yeah. So, speaking of the constitutional carry, James, just for anybody that's not like super caught up on it, like give a brief rundown on what the quick events that have led up to this in Indiana. I'm sure you know about Simon Malls and their rules and how that plays into this, and what are your opinions on private property and how our versus our old permit system.
So really, with private property, not much changed. Any private property could ban guns, and I what basically that means is they give you a trespass. So if you came onto their property with a gun, it wasn't necessarily illegal by law, but they could trespass you because that was their request. And that didn't really change with constitutional carry. So in this situation, technically he could be charged with a trespass from Simon, but I don't, from the spokesman from Simon, I don't think that's going to happen. But it really, as far as legally carrying, he did nothing wrong. Uh, he so when I what I tell people with private property is if you don't feel comfortable defending yourself, don't go on that property. That's more from a legal standpoint. It's respecting businesses that have that. And to me, if you can't be safe on a premise, it's hard to encourage someone to go onto that. I also don't want to encourage people to go against businesses that um, have no gun zones with a gun, just because I believe that you have to respect other people's property. But also, in this case, it worked out to the benefit of saving lives. And I really challenge business owners who have that policy to really look at that policy and see if it helps or if it actually hinders. Um, and I hope Simon really looks at their policy and maybe adjusts it, especially what we saw in Indiana, what life was saved. And when we think about cops' reaction times, no matter how fast and how good cops are, it's going to take them multiple minutes to respond. In
Yeah.
this case, it was 15 seconds that someone responded and took out evil. So no matter what policy you have, nothing compares to 15 seconds of someone saving life, and that's what the impressive stat is.
Yeah. I hope private companies do take a look at that policy and we see a wave from this. Really, everywhere would be nice, but definitely, I hope that Simon Property Group takes a look at that too. It made their mall safer. It made their mall safer, and saved lives. You know, there mass shootings have been an issue for a while, James. Like, what, how do, what do we need to do? How do we work to prevent more mass shootings in the future?
So
Where's the problem?
So there's two things. There's the reaction to mass shootings, which is what happened in this case. Someone reacted positive, well, in a positive direction of saving life and had that immediate response. So that's reactionary of how we save lives, and that's carrying. Constitutional carry is a good example of that, and that really is how you stop someone from continuing to fire. There's a lot of preventative measures we can also take. And what I really like to look at is the mental health. And I believe that healthy individuals who have proper mental health um, do not commit mass murders. And so we have to look at the opportunities and mental health part of that. And that's really ultimately how we prevent a lot of these situations.
Yeah. Um, I haven't read anything about the motive yet. Have you on this shooting?
No, I only saw speculation. Some put them in camps of with
Yeah.
different ideologies, but I don't think anything has come out 100%. And I hate to comment on that
Yeah.
before I see a report on it. Most of it, what I saw was speculation so far.
Yeah, me too. I was just checking. Um, let's see. So, I'm if you have any questions about this topic, please throw them in the chat, guys. We're looking for any questions that anybody has. If nobody has any questions about the Greenwood shooting, then we can move on to the Indiana abortion topic.
One thing I'd like to address before we move on, and it's a question I've been getting, and because I really highlight in my campaign, shall not be infringed. And to me, those words are very important. But the whole phrase is also really important. And it's a well regulated militia, and everybody says you ignore that. And I actually don't. A well regulated militia, when we look at the phrasing and the words that were used back then, means so I'm just going to read this to bring it up. Um, but really, a well regulated is someone or something being in proper working order. And so, with what we saw in this case, it's exactly what well regulated means. He knew how to use his weapon, he knew how to defend himself. And to note, he did not have any military or police background. His grandfather was the one that taught him, and he was only 22 years old. So when we talk about well regulated, this is how we talk about well regulated and the proper working order. So that the whole amendment is important to look at. And when people from specifically who want more gun regulation bring up a well regulated, it's really important to look at how our forefathers intended those words and what they actually mean.
Yeah, well regulated, well trained, well stocked, well supplied, plentiful. There's many of us. It's not small. Well regulated means maintained. It means put. We're putting ourselves into that. That's how important it is. That the people have the right to bear arms. Luke Lomax from Hancock County asked what could be done on a national level, James, and is there anyone in the Senate you would seek to partner with, or even beyond the Senate? He didn't say Senate, so maybe other kind of partners that you might look for on this issue.
I mean, any freedom leaning candidate I'm willing to work with. And basically, I want to model on the national level constitutional carry. I believe that it worked well in Indiana. We saw how it worked. It's not theory anymore. This is case study, and uh, in this case, it saved lives. So on a national level, I would love to see. Really, we call it constitutional carry, but really, that is our right. That's always been our right. It's just going back to what is in our constitution without the regulations that have multiplied and continue to infringe on that. So really going back to the Second Amendment and making it easier for those to carry, whether they're 18, 21, 24, whatever age, we have to make sure that people can defend themselves from situations like this. Like I said, no matter how fast the police respond, there's still going to be multiple minutes of someone mass shooting without somebody able to defend themselves.
Yeah, going back to the Second Amendment, I like how you said that, James. You know, I'm wearing Tanya Millis's shirt. She's running for Congress in the Ninth District, and she loves to say "roll it back," and that is something she would roll back. I could just see her saying that right now when you were talking about taking just going back to the foundation of our rights. That's all we're asking for. You know, roll it back, get rid of the regulations. Um, Awesome. Well, I mean, anything else you want to touch on the gun topic?
Just, I want to encourage those who haven't looked at carrying to consider what that means for yourself and your safety, and go to a range for a first time and just see how comfortable you can get with a gun. I don't recommend just getting um, not having training. So see what that looks like to you, see how it feels in your hand, and see if that's a way that you choose to defend yourself. And if it is, I encourage you to carry.
Yeah, like Eli learned from his grandfather. You know, if maybe you can reach out to your grandfather or someone close to you, you know, a friend or a family member that would be. I know I would be if one of my family members reached out to me and was like, "I want to learn how to shoot a gun and try it for the first time." I'd be like, "I'm there." So I'm sure there are gun owners around you that would jump at the opportunity to show you and the right way to handle them. You know, I'm an Eagle Scout, so I grew up with them at a young age and learned the proper way to handle them and respect them, and you know, I think everybody should go through that. At least have the option to. Um,
Which brings up another point, Chris. We
yeah.
actually have Vanderburgh County, um, sorry, correction. I'm getting my days. We are going to Top Gun on the 30th, and anyone who's interested, we're gonna have some training there. We're gonna fire some guns, have some fun, and explore guns. And if this is a situation where you want more training, come on out on the 30th to Top Gun, and we would love to see you there. It's going to be a fun event where we understand and we look at the safety of guns as well as target practice and just having a good time with freedom-minded individuals. So if you're interested in that event, it's Top Gun on the 30th, and I would love to see you there.
I'm gonna be there, James. That's my kind of event. Is it a fundraiser? Is there anything else I need to know about it?
It is a fundraiser. It's $50 for tickets. You can rent a gun there. That does not include ammunition, so you can either bring your own gun and bring ammunition, or uh, purchase it there. $50 is to shoot. We've rented out some lanes, so it'll be to shoot with us, and then there's
Nice.
an ice cream social after that. We can discuss these topics more.
That sounds fun. So I can come if I want to bring my own firearms. I can borrow their firearms. I could even maybe borrow someone else's that's coming to your event. I can bring my own ammunition, or I can buy it there.
Yep, all
Sounds like
those
all the
are
options are covered.
exactly, and we're gonna actually have some fun guns there, from my understanding. So it'll be a fun way to explore what even ways you can protect yourself and your home.
Awesome. So if you were just in that last section thinking, yeah, I kind of want to learn and get trained, you could come and get trained by James himself at the
Absolutely. I'd be
event.
more than willing to show you a little bit of the basics. And this is a great way to explore self defense and understand that really guns can be a scary topic, but they don't have to be. They can be a tool that we use to defend ourselves. And there's multiple purposes, including hunting. So there's a lot of things to look at with guns. And I'm really hyped for this event. So the 30th, mark it on your calendars, and it's going to be at Top Gun.
Awesome, James. Thanks. Um, well, let's jump on over to our other topic then. You know, in Indiana, they have the Republicans in the state house introduced a bill, right? Today, today, so that's why it's so current event.
Yes,
Um,
very current.
it just happened today, and that's why I think we needed to talk about it just a little bit. They proposed the bill that would. Well, I'll give the brief rundown of what you'll read, and then James, you can go into a little more because I know you've done a lot of research on it. But like this is from the Indy Star, so this will be like the first thing anybody reads about it. That so they ban all abortions except for in cases of rape, incest, or where the mother's life's in danger. This would make Indiana one of the states with the greatest restrictions on abortion. If passed, we would be one of only 8 states that have a abortion ban at 0 weeks. Um, it does not criminalize anyone seeking an abortion, though. Just to be clear, it actually criminalizes the doctors who perform the abortions illegally. They could lose their license, their medical license, face a penalty, jail time, a fine. Um, so I know you've done a lot more research on it, James. Um, give us some of the bigger chunks that you pulled out of that are important for people to understand that they're not going to get from a headline.
So there's some very important topics, and actually, when you said criminalize doctors, it actually does not have a penalty as far as jail time. The It would be just loss of license. So there is that part to it. But it's, from my understanding of the document that was presented, there's actually no jail time for the doctor or the mother, um, or the one seeking abortion. But some of the more important notes, and I think this is where I go. On my campaign, I've really addressed the heart of the issue of abortion and how we reduce it through a lot of social areas. And this bill actually has some encouraging things in it. Um, when we look at some of the things besides the ban itself, it actually, one of the ones is funding for safe haven baby boxes. I'm a huge fan of baby boxes. It gives women an option to um, give their child a better home and be able to not have any penalties, and be able to understand that there is a home for their child even after birth. So baby boxes are a huge thing in Indiana, and I think that this is part of that bill that would be a good thing for Indiana, the funding of baby boxes. Another part is they're going to do programs to prevent children from ever entering DCS. I think this is another part of that social part where we have to, this is a large topic, and when we look at DCS, it's already overwhelmed. And if we can prevent children from being part of DCS, this is a good part of that bill that may pass. We'll see what actually passes. Um, it says that there is support for adoptive and foster care. So hopefully, with that, we see those who want to adopt it. Some of those barriers become easier and more accessible for adoptions. And um, it does, when it comes to contraceptions, it actually opens up that realm, and Plan B would not be prohibited. So Plan B would still be an option. Other contraceptions would be opened up and the red tape would be removed. So that could be a positive. And ultimately, there's a lot of things that they addressed that, if they pass this, would be a positive on reducing abortions from a social perspective. And that part is encouraging to see, that they addressed some of, again, with the adoption, with the foster care, with Plan B, they addressed that. They addressed miscarriages. Actually, that was one of the things that I've addressed over and over on some of my interviews. How do we treat miscarriages? And according to the research that I've done, it does not affect anything about miscarriages. So hopefully, there is some positives within this bill that we can look for and see.
Yeah, I actually noticed I did a little digging on the other 8 states that have the 0 week ban, and we're the only ones that have a lot of those protections, uh, the funding and the benefits to support that, because ultimately their goal here is to eliminate abortions, but in turn, you see a lot of flack about just like the right not caring at all about like those child once they're born, and so I think it it seems like they're using this to say, well, we do care, and these are all the ways that we're going to make sure that they're supported and helped, and I think it's really ironic that you've been talking about these things just nonstop since well, even before Roe v. Wade, but
So
definitely at Roe v. Wade. You addressed a lot of these problems.
my campaigns hit this issue hard.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this before Roe v. Wade, and I've fine tuned it after. But what's interesting to me is I actually asked my team. I said, "Do you think someone actually read what I put out?" Because I did put out press releases that got into the newspaper, because a lot of these topics that I put out on my press release were addressed, which is amazing to me. Whether it's just coincidence or whether somebody saw my press release and wanted to include some of this, either way, the fact that some of these things are there shows to me that the pro-life isn't just if this law was passed, the pro-life isn't just about abortions. It's about the supporting the families after, again, with the DCS, with adoptions, with foster care. So again,
Yeah.
I see some encouraging things within that bill.
Yeah, we have a baby box in Mooresville. Actually, right after I moved to Mooresville, they were putting in the baby box, and it was kind of like uh, an achievement for libertarians, at least in Morgan County, because we did it with voluntary funding instead of taxpayer funding.
And
But
the thing about baby boxes, you can be pro-life or pro-choice and support baby boxes,
yeah,
because it's not a pro-life or pro-choice issue. It's the fact that we have another option that is available to you to get a loving home for this child. So it's really it's just a beautiful program that everybody should look into.
yeah, um, definitely agree. They actually, I it was just in the paper maybe 2 weeks ago here in Mooresville that somebody had actually used it for the first time since it got installed. Um, so I thought that was um, pretty amazing. It had been there for a couple of years now, but nobody had actually used it. So I hope that more of those options become available for people.
This is a great question from Ashley. I
Yeah.
brought up on the screen. Does this proposed bill include addressing ectopic pregnancies? And it actually does. It says that those will not be affected. That if it's, I'm trying to get the exact wording, but it does not affect treatment of ectopic pregnancies. And so they did address that, and they said that that would not be affected at all in the bill. So that was an important one that I wanted them to address, and they did.
Yeah, there are a lot of comments just agreeing that this is a good compromise. With the exemptions, and then to saving mothers
Well,
that where their lives are at risk. Um,
I think that no matter what bill is going to be presented, you're not going to make everybody happy. But there's a lot of thought to what this initial plan bill. We'll see what actually passes, because we all know that this is going to be fought over for a couple weeks.
yeah,
Um, and honestly, it makes some of the pro-life candidates very upset. I think I heard a couple remarks. I'm not going to state names at the moment because I don't have the remarks up on screen and I don't want to misquote them. But some of them said it doesn't go far enough. But I believe it is a compromise as far as saving women, not just babies, but it saves women's lives as well. And that's a really important factor. I think we have to look at medical issues, and that I've always stated that politicians really shouldn't act as physicians. There's a lot of medical needs, and we can't understand all that. There's so many things that we can't plan for. And another case study that came up was that 10-year-old girl from Ohio. Everyone was like, well, how do we handle this? And honestly, for a 10-year-old to hold a pregnancy, that is a life risk factor. Um, you can't, as a 10-year-old, carry that to term and not have major health risk. So we really do have to look at a lot of these issues from not just a complete ban on abortion. And I believe that this is a good compromise. So we'll again see where Indiana takes it. And of course, there will probably be other things in this bill that I didn't get to research yet. So I'm curious to, like we said, this just came out today. So this is my initial research. We'll have to do further study on it and see what some of the intentions behind it are.
Yeah, I think being Hoosiers our whole lives, we kind of knew something like this was coming after the Roe v. Wade change. So I think that I can see, yeah, I can see some of the pro life Republicans thinking that this isn't far enough, because
Well,
I could definitely see Indiana being the most extreme, one of top three most extreme on this issue here. So
so something I really want to point out with this comment specifically, and Cassie says, "Oh yeah, definitely they are ticked." Um,
yep,
uh, what I want to address with this is when many of our candidates in Indiana ran, they ran, "I'm a pro-life candidate," but none of them defined what pro-life meant. So voters assumed that they interpreted pro-life the same way that that voter interpreted pro-life. In my candidacy, I've always stated exactly what I mean by me being a social pro-life candidate. And I do believe there's ways to reduce abortions socially, and this bill addresses a lot of those. But really, when these candidates ran, they just simply said, "I'm pro-life." So now that we're looking at them having to put it into words, we're seeing what that actually means to each candidate. And some of the candidates are for complete bans. They want a 10-year-old to hold a pregnancy, no matter what risk that is to that 10-year-old. And I think that we really are at a crossroads of how to approach this, because voters didn't realize what candidates were saying when they said they were pro-life.
yeah. Um, It's why it's another way the two party systems kind of failed us, because it just loops people, it groups people into I'm yes or I'm no, and then you don't dig any further into that, because why? They're on your side. It doesn't matter how far they are on your side, right? They're not the other guy, and that's kind of where we've lost some of the nuance in political theory and debate, and with when it comes to topics like this, and or any topics, because it's just I'm pro life or I'm pro choice, and that's as far as it goes. Nobody needs to know anything else about what you believe on the issue to determine how they feel about you.
Well, and it's a strategy they use, right? They can make money off the issue. If they don't define it, then they're not going to make anybody upset. Well, besides the ones that they're not going to make anybody on their side upset. So they know that they're going to probably lose at least 50% of votes by saying one way or the other. But the fact is if they don't define it, they're not going to lose any more votes. And that's something I wanted to come at differently. I wanted to tell people exactly where I stood with this. And if you're interested in exactly where I stand, you can go to www.ceniac4senate.com. And on my policy page, you can read a little bit about abortions there, as well as you can read my full press release. But I don't believe it's a topic that we can just simply use rhetoric for to overcome a lot of these issues. We have to look at the whole issue, and that's saving as many lives as we can, including mothers' lives. And it's really an important issue. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you're interested in this topic, uh, research more about my candidacy and look at it at www.ceniac4senate.
Yeah, Luke in the comments said, he thinks a lot of those candidates and those politicians may feel differently if it was their 10-year-old daughter or 10-year-old niece, and I have thought that about like the pro war, before, but I'd never applied it to this issue, because I've always thought like, well, you wouldn't send your own kids overseas to fight. You just want to send, our kids overseas to fight. So, but he just applied it to this same thing. I think it's a common theme among a lot of politicians, is they'll say what people want to hear, and when it actually comes to shove, they're not actually where you thought they were. and that's happening here in Indiana right now because I mean, being a deep red state, most of our elected officials have ran on a pro-life campaign to get elected, and now that they're faced with actually legislating the issue, we're seeing where people actually stand on it. So yeah, that's pretty interesting too. Um,
We are getting some questions in, Chris. Which is
I just see one about from Luke. Um, what about the bill that is about to hit the Senate floor, codifying gay marriage? I'm not familiar with that. If you
it
are, you can talk about
literally
it.
just hit the Senate floor, and there's some interesting points to make. And I think Amash actually made one of the best points. But from a libertarian perspective, we actually believe that the state itself shouldn't even define marriage. And so, one of the interesting things in this bill that was being talked about was the fact that they said your state can choose to not license marriages, but if they do license marriages, they can't discriminate. So they wouldn't be able to discriminate against homosexuals or interracial marriages, but if they do issue marriage licenses, they have to include all those. Now, your state could choose not to issue any licenses at all for marriage, and that's a really interesting. Actually, I think that is a really libertarian philosophy because I don't believe that the state in the first place should issue licenses for marriage. I believe that should be between you and your significant other, and possibly whatever religion you're in, and that's how you define your marriage. So I actually, from what I initially saw about this bill, liked some of the things that I saw in it.
Wow. Well, you can tell I've been working all day if I didn't catch that one.
Well, I've also been working all day, but fortunately
Well,
for me, I caught that one on break. So, I'm on my lunch break, catching up on all the news that I can.
oh
Um,
yeah. Well,
uh,
that's your job too.
it is my job, and Amash, I think, really had a good perspective on that. So, if you want to check out Justin Amash's post about that, I believe that he addressed that very well. And for those who don't know, Amash was the first libertarian to serve in Congress. He got elected as a Republican, but switched to the Libertarian Party. And he's no longer in Congress, but he is a huge influence within the Libertarian Party and the freedom movement.
Yeah, definitely check Justin Amash out. Michigan congressman, pretty close to home. So we have a question about HR 1808. You familiar, James?
I have
That's the
not.
assault. I think that's the assault weapons ban.
Okay, I've not seen that specifically researched that specific bill. If it's the assault weapons ban. I think that goes back to the Second Amendment, and I really stand strong that as long as the Second Amendment is there, we have to abide by it. I look at all these politicians, and there's actually ways to amend the Constitution, but the process to do that, you have to have favorable every you have to have so many states on board and favorable across the United States, and they really don't have the support to eliminate anything within the Second Amendment, and they know that. So all they do is try to minimize the words and make them meaningless, and so that they redefine those words. Again, we can talk about the well regulated, what it actually was written at, or what politicians currently are saying that they mean. So they're just attacking the words with a lot of these bills, and that to me is not defending your rights or defending the Constitution, which is one of the number one things we have to do as elected officials is to defend your rights, defend that Constitution.
Yeah, it's nice to know it doesn't matter what number the bill has on it. James is going to stand up for the Second Amendment, 100%.
I do believe in our Constitution, even on some things that you know we have to protect our rights, and that's one thing that as elected officials we don't talk about enough. The people do have rights, and that is very important.
The First Amendment, and we won't have the First Amendment without the Second.
Right, and so those two are very tied. I say
Mhm.
you don't have the Second Amendment without the First Amendment, and you don't have the First Amendment without the Second. So the First Amendment covers the freedom of religion, which is very important. Hoosiers, I think we need to bring this up in more discussions, but we saw churches shut down by our government, And that to me was very much an infringement on your First Amendment rights. Even though we are going through a crisis, it's not the government's role to tell you that you cannot go to church and that that's not important enough in this health crisis. For some, it actually would have saved their life because there's a lot of depression and a lot of mental anxiety, and people rely on their churches for a support system. So, absolutely, we have to protect our First Amendment rights. And that goes back to the second. The second helps us protect those First Amendment.
Yeah, well, I saw something about China today. I don't want to change the topic on you, but China, they have a lot stricter laws than us, obviously, and they rolled tanks into the square today to protect the Bank of China, um, declaring that your savings in their bank was now an investment and was no longer withdrawable. And I just like I could never imagine something like that happening here because of the Second Amendment, and because like there's too much risk for the government involved that they wouldn't do something like that here. Um, but what do you think? I could be wrong.
So, I mean, China is a whole different game, and we can see what tyranny does, and
Yeah,
the fact that it really hurts civilians. And I remember watching during COVID, people during the lockdown, the cries from the apartments of this is a crazy infringement on just human rights. Human rights exist everywhere, whether we're in America or not. And so, we can play what ifs all day, but the reality is that with power, people will use power in whatever way they see fit, and the government is will take more power than what they should. That's why we see the infringements on our rights, and with power comes corruption. And if it serves their purpose more than it serves the people's purpose, politicians will go behind the people's back and, um, put it bluntly, not care about your rights. And it's terrible. It's something that we have to we have to fight now, because we can't wait till we see everything gone.
it'll be too late.
Exactly. I still look at the church thing, right? They shut down it for, in some states it was longer, and I think Indiana was maybe a month. But the fact that they started that process, who's to say that they aren't going to start controlling religion altogether if we let them? And we just have to make sure that we stand for our rights now. And a libertarian vote is exactly that. We're going to stand up for your First Amendment rights.
Yes, we are. Um, let's see if we have any other questions in the chat here.
I know you addressed it in a comment, but someone asked what I do for a full-time job, and
Yeah.
I'll just address it live. I'm a behavior therapist, so I work with kids with autism. And what I really like to tell people is that it's an incremental approach to change. And when I work with these kids, I'll give the example of COVID. I went into one of my clients' homes and asked them what are some in-home goals that we can work on, and they talked about they wanted their kid to ride a bike, and this specific child was terrified of bikes. He wouldn't even be in the same room as the bike. So the first step was getting him adjusted to even be able to walk into that room. The second step was getting him to be able to touch the bike, and this is a week process, right? So then the next step, putting one leg over, um, and then it's just rolling him down the driveway. And by the end of the summer, he saw other kids on their bike, and he wanted to go out and was absolutely loving riding the bike. So when we look at the incremental approach, I believe that we can take that to Washington, and really, right now is the right time to look at an approach that has more freedoms, is pushing for more rights, and is the libertarian message.
I think we need more people like that in Washington, and I also think that's a really good libertarian approach. A lot of times people see as as an all or nothing. Or if we made these changes overnight, like things would break and not work anymore. Like, I like your approach to it, because everything that progresses, it's progressive. It's anything that moves us in that direction is what we want to go for. And I think that's exactly what we need there.
Jesse asked, 2A rally. You may have missed the initial announcement, but we are doing a full 2A tour, and it actually kicks off on the 30th in Terre Haute at Top Gun. You can come shoot with me for $50, and there's an ice cream social after. Bring your own guns and ammunition, but we do have lane rentals, and we're excited to start this 2A rally because I believe that they will keep fighting to take away your rights. And we saw Todd Young do this. He voted in favor to take away 2A rights for 18 to 21-year-olds and address some major issue. We have to address this now because Republicans aren't. They're not fighting for your freedoms. They're not for smaller government. They've preached these messages over and over, but their votes are showing up and they're not doing what they're saying. So I'm really excited about the 2A rally. Come out 30th, Top Gun, and we're going to have a great time. And again, if you've never shot a gun, it would be a great opportunity. There will be plenty of people who can help you understand guns, as well as I'll personally show you how to shoot a Glock. It'll be a great time.
Is that your do you carry, James?
I I don't usually tell people whether I carry or not because I tell people I like to keep my poker cards to
Oh,
myself.
okay.
But I'm all for carrying. It's an important part of our protections.
Ned Stark, his famous quote in Game of Thrones was, "I don't want fight for real because I don't want a man to know what I can do when I do fight for real," or something. I can't quote it right now, but that's how you're living your life right there, huh? I shared the link to the event on the range at Top Gun. So if anybody else was interested, the link is in the chat. You can jump down there, click it, hit you're going, get all the other details that you need. Look forward to seeing everybody there for sure. I carry a flamethrower. Well, I have read the Top Gun's website, and I don't think they allow flamethrowers. I'm sorry, Cassie. You'll have to leave that one at home.
But you're
But
more than welcome to come, and I have plenty of other firepower.
we'll
So
have an after party where you can show me. It must be Elon Musk's flamethrower, huh? Or homemade.
you got called out. You butchered it. They said the Game of Thrones. I
My
actually don't
quote.
remember that quote, but
I don't care.
Chris.
They all know what I'm talking about, at least. It's the principle. Clearly, I need to do another rewatch, huh?
Well, I really appreciate you, Chris, stepping in tonight. For those who don't know, my producer is Chris Groff. He's the Hancock County Chair, and Hendricks County Chair. And I have team members everywhere. I have them in Hancock and Hendricks, so I've been really blessed with a lot of team members. But he was on vacation today, so Chris Galt stepped in. He's our political director for LPIN. He's the political director in Morgan County, and he is the campaign manager for Tanya for Congress. So he keeps his hands very busy, and he's an amazing. If you want to be influenced, he does so many things well, and he
Yeah.
does the work. So thank you, Chris. Definitely appreciate you.
Thanks, James. Yeah, if you want to learn more about other candidates besides James, check out the website lpin.org/candidates, and there's a list of many of our candidates on there. So you can learn more about local candidates in your area, and other statewide candidates like Jeff Moore for Secretary of State.
Luke's the chair in Hancock, so welcome, Luke. And I gave your county a shout out again. I have team members from Hancock, so thanks, Luke, for watching and commenting in tonight. And again, thank you everybody for coming in, watching, and discussing these important issues. I'm excited about the Senate run. We're really picking up a lot of steam, and if you want to help, we definitely can take donations. www.ceniac4senate.com/donate. My campaign is funded for the people, by the people, because I believe that is how politics really should be done. We're very accountable with our money, and we're doing great things. If you also have time or talent, we are looking for more team members and people who are just really want to invest in freedom and spreading that message across Indiana. Again, thank you for coming in tonight. We do these every Wednesday. Sometimes the time adjusts. Most of the time we try to hit it at 7:30, but it also depends on what events are going on. So thank you again for coming in, and we appreciate all the questions.
Thank you.